We are one. Nothing can break us down. When we are on top form, we're rocket fire. Autism is not a disability, it's a discovery. I feel so proud to be who I am. I've come so far. Nothing will ever define me. I am unstoppable until the very end.
What is autism? Good question. We are only starting to understand it, but there are official diagnostic criteria, which you can read up in a book. It's called DSM-5. I have a personal definition. There is 2 sentences. 1, someone who has autism has found in life something more interesting and enjoyable than socializing. And autism is a different way of perceiving, thinking, learning and relating. A different way of perceiving the world, from sensory systems to errors. It is a different way of thinking, sometimes being very original and creative in thinking, but it's also a different way of learning. And often at school, the learning environment is not autism friendly, and it's a different way of relating. And I use the term different, not defective.
For me, autism is a learning difficulty in trying to make relationships with humans and trying to understand them. So for me, I sort of tend to relate more to music and films rather than actual people. So yeah, in a nutshell, autism is basically a struggle with creating relationships with people.
Right, what is autism? For a start, to define autism, I wouldn't use the diagnostic criteria. They are based on people's observations and based on a negative approach. My own definition of autism, and it's just from myself, my own life, and people I've worked with over the last 30 odd years, is we think differently. We like to see the pattern behind things. Not easily swayed by anything that can't be factually evidenced.
In terms of what it is, it's rather than a sort of linear or static condition that runs in a line. The way I look at autism is a 3-dimensional condition. In other words, it's a condition made up of different conditions. So every person who's diagnosed with autism has their own unique stacking or fruit salad.
Now, diagnostic criteria are aspects of social emotional reciprocity, reading non-verbal communication, making friends. There's repetitive behaviour, there are routines and rituals, there are special interest and sensory sensitivity. However, in day-to-day life, what can be far more powerful in that person's life is anxiety and depression.
What has impacted my mental health very severely is being different and being told because I'm different I am faulty. And I have a history of depression. Like most autistic children, well, I think all really, when I grew up, I was punished for being me, told, no, you're silly, you don't do it like that. So like a lot of autistic people, I'm used to being punished for being myself.
So what, in some ways, what was happening in the system of sensing, I was picking up all this emotional frequency, but equally just getting funneled into losing myself. So in a sense, ego and whatever the object was would become one. So what would happen is I would lose myself in a sense. So it could be a picture, it could be a colour, it could be a ball, it could be lights. For example, when I still go into the supermarket, I have to keep switching on my conscious mind to remember I'm in a supermarket.
There's a number of ways that having autism affects mental health, and one is that unfortunately genetically certain mental health conditions like mood disorders come in with autism. So just having autism can give you a predisposition to having anxiety or depression. But secondly, unfortunately, a lot of people in our community don't understand autism, and without having that understanding, and that people with autism are a minority group, it means that one of the challenges for people with autism is to find connection in our community, true understanding and a sense of belonging.
Richard Corey. Whenever Richard Corey went downtown, we people on the pavement looked at him. He was a gentleman from soul to crown, clean-favoured and imperially slim. And he was always quietly arrayed, and he was always human when he talked. But still, he fluttered pulses when he said, "Good morning," and he glittered when he walked. And he was rich, yes, richer than a king, and admirably schooled in every grace. In fine, we thought that he was everything, to make us wish that we were in his place. So on we worked, and waited for the light, and went without the meat, and cursed the bread. And Richard Cory, one calm summer night, went home and put a bullet through his head.
Autism is a superpower, it's amazing, it brings challenges and it brings strengths. And that's unlike almost every other disability that we have in the book. So it's a good one to have. So if you have it, great, that's really, really brilliant. There are challenges, and that's why we're here today talking about mental health. The research is quite clear that if you have autism plus, that is autism plus intellectual impairment or plus language disorder or plus mental health issues, it's going to be harder.
So when I got diagnosed with infantile depression in '96, they were still going down the route of attachment disorder rather than autism, which is fair enough. It's about biases. We all have biases. It's a frame of reference. So I don't hold any malice for the people that bullied me or traumatized me, because they probably needed more help than I did.
I suppose, well, I tend to try and use the sort of stuff like mindfulness at the moment, and that's been really good. It's sort of keeping me be able to stay in work for as long as I have been. So I suppose mindfulness is pretty good, because sometimes I can get really worked up, but it also makes you accept that you're going to be thinking of things and they are just thoughts. They're nothing that's going to affect you further. They're just what's going on inside your head, basically.
So sometimes some of the teenagers, they become a recluse in their bedroom. And mum says, come on, no. Why do you want me to go to school? I'm bullied and teased, I'm not successful academically. And if you're not successful at sport and academics and social, and you're bullied and teased, why go to school? And so the person retreats because life is toxic.
Why do we want self-awareness tools? Because we can't self-regulate. In other words, we can't manage our difficult emotions if we're not aware of when they come up. If they are just there and we're not aware that they're there, we are acting from that base as if that's who we are. And this happens a lot in autism. So the person believes what depression tells them. They believe that they're worthless. They believe that their future's hopeless. They believe that the world is crap. That's their life. It's not their life, but it's what they believe because of depression.
What I think about bullying from my own perspective is that I thank the bullies for doing it to me, because let's face it, they gave me a framework of how not to treat people. So if I didn't learn anything educationally from school, be it primary or secondary, what I was going to learn in a sink or swim environment is how to cope. It may not be the best way because it was done through unusual circumstances, but what I nevertheless took out of my observations of the world then is some very interesting strategies for how to gain a level of resilience and autonomy when I got older. So when I got out of education and when I got out of the sort of teenage world and then going slowly into the adult world. Chronologically, I may not have been a teenager. However, it still goes back to what do I take out of a negative situation, and that's what I take out of it.
Advice for adults living with autism. Oh, blimey, yeah, loads of it. In about 17 hours from now, I've probably finished it all off. But broadly speaking, I think a lot of what I do with autistic people is when I'm working with them and help them to feel comfortable in their own skins, because we really are, we're like fish swimming against the current in a river a lot of the time. Understand who and what they are. Also, to help you get yourself to a place where you understand that autism isn't a set of faults. Actually, it's a very valid way, beautiful way of being a human. It's different to most people. And actually how autism then relates to non-autistic people, because they are quite good at generalising, we're good at specificising. The two fit together very nicely. And to help them understand, I think, getting comfortable with who and what they are, and learn from autistic sources what autism's about. There are a lot of good autistic authors in there. I mean, one book I recommend to a lot of people is Claire Sainsbury's Martian in the Playground. There's a ton of really good insight in that book, very readable. So I try to help them get to a point where they feel comfortable in their own skin. That's years worth of work. But then from that point, work out from a position of autistic strength, rather than the experience most of us have, whereas we are cowed and punished into conformity and frightened. But rather the work from strength, actually, no, I am this way, I have to do it this way. And then if I'm respected, I can then respect you and actually get on with non-autistic culture really quite nicely.
Just find the support that works for you, really, if you are on the spectrum, I guess. I mean, I use support groups and I go to sort of like meetups as well, to sort of just keep me not stuck at home all the time. So I suppose, so try and break from your comfort zone, so to speak, to just try and get yourself out there. I mean, just pursue your interests, because in the end you'll be able to sort of make some understanding of what's going on around you if you're able to, sort of make your interests go hand in hand with what you're doing. That'll be the dream come true. But so I suppose, just to enjoy life, just have good friends, family, and I suppose don't be afraid to talk about it, because keeping it to yourself is, it's all gonna bubble up inside, and you're just gonna vent it out in some way that's not gonna help either you or others around you. So
going back to what I first said, you need to understand your fruit salad. One needs to understand the mechanics, so you can almost see it as a project on yourself, a journey. Something you mentioned to me while we were walking around here, a journey of exploration. So, for example, I personalise it. These tints here that I walk around with, they look like sunglasses, and all they're doing is helping me glue the visual world together. So the colour in its basic explanation is frequencies of light. So when I put these glasses on, everything, my visual world, is glued together. So remember what I said about the straw off the camel's back? This could be a strategy for someone. A strategy as simple as tinted lenses, that are what they're doing is they're opening up my visual world. I'm able to see visuals with coherence. I'm able to understand foreground and background. I'm able to process and perceive faces much better, objects much better, people much better. So what it's doing is, in effect, it's helping me with feedback. It's taking away all the unnecessary stuff and filtering it more appropriately, so I can walk through the visual spatial world with more coherence. Another thing I've got as a last example is on my shoes I've got what they sometimes use for people with flat feet or that have had trauma to their feet or arthritis, where it's a pad on their shoe and then it's got bumps. And what that helps me with is walking, coordination, sense of my body. So when I walk, I'm getting the feedback of my feet because I'm so disconnected from my body that anything that is tight, anything that gives a level of pressure is making me aware of my body. So just simple things like that. Sometimes the simplest strategies are the ones that work the best. However, it's individualistic. So for some people, they may have more complex issues than me, and people do, because everyone's an individual. So strategies may be different. For example, someone with alexithymia doesn't know how they're feeling and cannot interpret bodily signals or emotional states, so self-emotional states. They may need help with mentalising their emotions and mentalising their inner world. For me, because I don't have a visual memory, and that's a common form of learning, visuals, about 70% of the world's populace are visual in thought, and ironically 70% of information is visual. So if I'm funneled in only having about 30%, then that would actually make sense why my conscious mind is struggling with the moment, but my pre-conscious mind is actually picking up the relevance. So my pre-conscious, unconscious mind, the way I've funneled that to talk about my emotions is through art, creative writing and poetry, because what it's doing is extrapolating. Then I read it or I look at it and then I learn about myself. So it's pre-conscious thought, putting it out there in an external framework, and then helping me understand my own emotional frequencies, how I feel, introspective thought. But those three examples I just want to point out are personal to me. They may help some other people, and someone will have a completely different fruit salad to me and it won't help. So what has helped, in a nutshell, is learn about one's fruit salad, learn about the different information processing issues, personality types, learn about different mental health conditions that overlap with the autism, learn about what and how you've interacted with the environment. Do you have exposure anxiety, where you struggle with yourself being exposed, so you need to manage and try and find ways of understanding firstly what that is and how it triggers you. So exposure anxiety, exposure to self, so any direct contact I used to have in terms of just even someone saying my name at school would then trigger retaliation, diversion responses. So that would come through echolalia, litanies, selective mutism. So you build, as you can see as I'm talking, I've built, this is 10 years worth of work. You're building up a profile. So you look at your environment and you look at any additional factors. So could it be dietary disabilities? Could it be the fact that you have been isolated or alienated? Could it be the fact that there's parts of your autism that you are completely frustrated by and you feel hinder you, disable you? Is it that some people actually view their autism and parts of it as things that actually aid them and help them? So it's weighing up the balance, understand who you are. All human beings in the world, there's 7 billion of them, not one of them is the same. So everyone in effect is a patchwork quilt made up of different things. It's about understanding what those pieces are, that then you can healthily advocate for yourself, maybe help someone else, but in essence, as I said earlier on in the interview, it is about being the best version of yourself.
It's a tough journey, but work on accepting yourself, embracing who you are, and be a first-rate Aspie, not a second-rate neurotypical.